So we basically take care of pre-qualification, checking for relevance, filling out the tender, making a pre-filled offer so that the sales teams at vendors can quickly review them and send it out. So the more fast they respond, the better the chances for them to win a tender. And that's our core value proposition, to help suppliers win tender faster.
All right, thanks everyone for joining. We have Mohit here from Tenderfix. He is going to introduce himself, tell a little bit about the business, kind of what they primarily focus on. Mohit, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business?
Thank you, Alex. Hi, Lohit. Hi, everyone. Mohit Desai from Tenderfix, and I'm the co-founder and CTO at Tenderfix. And what we basically do is tender automation. And for people who are not familiar with tenders, tenders is a procurement tool which is widely used in the construction industry. For example, for an airport building, when you want to get 100 doors, 200 windows with lighting, with whatnot, so all these technical requirements get written down in a document, circulated in the market where different vendors can bid on it. And our solution basically helps the vendors to bid on tenders faster. So we basically take care of pre-qualification, checking for relevance, filling out the tender, making a pre-filled offer so that the sales teams at vendors can quickly review them and send it out. So the more fast they respond, the better the chances for them to win a tender. And that's our core value proposition, to help suppliers win tender faster.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this economy and how we alluded to at the beginning of this phone call, talking about like impact of AI. I mean, that's going to be huge right now for, kind of efficiency and, AI driven automation for you. I mean, that's already where you're at. So I think that you probably were ahead of the game at the beginning of it.
Absolutely.
So that's good to hear.
Well, I would really call it as, always playing a game of catch up with technology, because every 6 months or so, a company drops, a bigger company like OpenAI or Google or somebody else drops a new model with new fancy features, and whatever you were building on top of the previous model to really stay ahead of the curve. And, you're always in a continuous catch up game that, okay, now 4.1 came out with, a much larger context window, much better performance overall, and much cheaper as well, right? So you always have to kind of stay ahead of the curve, but I feel in the end, you really have to focus on your customer. Like, no matter the underlying model, whether it's from Mistral, whether it's from OpenAI, whether it's from Google, whether it's from whatever company, right? What's the value you can derive for your customer, and what's the value you can deliver to your customer? In the end, that's what all that matters. I mean, we are not in the race of building the newest 100 trillion parameter model. We are not in the business of that.
I mean, actually kind of talking into that, especially at the beginning of the of this conversation to really highlight kind of, where you guys set yourselves apart and where you guys, excel and kind of, stand above your competition. Like what do you bring to the table that, maybe other companies that do the same thing, what can you provide your customers that's a little bit, a little bit head over what the other guys are doing?
Right, right. I think a couple of things, maybe to set the context straight. We are not building foundation models. That's not really our thing. We are really building the applications on top of the foundation models. So whether it's the workflow automation, when a tender comes in either through an email or through a portal or from whichever source. So our customers usually have diverse set of input fields, right? Like where the tenders are coming to them. We really act on, once they have it in their inbox, in their CRM system, in their whatever system, that's where our AI starts to take over. And the first step that we do is really the ingestion, like breaking down information from different sources, different formats, different data structures, and boil it down to a simple unified layer with which the AI can work with. And that's where the recommendation layer comes in, where depending on the customer requirements, whether someone is really looking for parameter extraction or someone is really looking for, just preparing the bid or workflow automation, depending on these flavors of customers, we do the recommendations. And finally, delivery, where the system interacts with customers' ERP system or a CRM to really automate an end-to-end workflow. And coming back to your question of how do we set us apart from our competition? Our competition so far really was focused on building the nicest looking dashboard. We have plenty of those companies out there. We are not doing that. Essentially, we are really hitting the biggest pain points that the customer had, meaning even with the nice dashboard, someone in the end has to manually go through thousands of pages manually, right? To find out that the relevant information is only between page 100 to 200. So now imagine if the AI is telling you, hey guys, look into these sections. You can offer X, Y, and Z products. And with the ERP, I know this is your frequent customer. You can offer him a 30% discount. Since this information was already available in different systems, now we can talk to different systems and really aggregate and segregate all this information and combine it to really make a pre-filled offer, which is really just 2 clicks away from review and sending out.
Yeah, I mean I think you're focusing on the right thing. Obviously a pretty dashboard and things that work well at the end of the day is nice, and you can easily make that, but really what's setting yourself apart is bringing so much value of like saving time and efficiency, and maybe even uncovering maybe sales that they probably wouldn't even have gotten if they didn't use your system, correct? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go.
Absolutely. One thing I often get asked from certain investors and also from some people who are not really too deep into this field. They're like, guys, so is AI gonna take our jobs away? And my answer is no, not really. Think of this as a calculator or as a simple tool that just makes you a bit more efficient, that does the grunt work for you, so you don't have to do the grunt work. You can really focus on customer fulfillment. So I really see this tool as an assistant that you don't have to do all the heavy lifting. The AI can do the heavy lifting for you. Rather, you can really focus on end customer experience and customer fulfillment. Because in the end, we live still in a physical world, right? Relationships and interpersonal connections, how you have with people, drive business in the end of the day. So I say people should really focus on what they're doing best, building interpersonal relationship. Let the AI do the heavy lifting.
I also think too, I mean, you get a lot of talk about thinking that like AI is going to replace people and, lessen work staff and, numbers in the workplace. But really, I mean, I think the smart companies that really leverage AI are not only going to keep their staff around, they're going to make them more productive, but then they're also going to exponentially grow their sales and grow their company. Because yeah, if you
Absolutely.
implement AI and you don't grow your sales, then yeah, you probably will have to lower your workforce. But if you can leverage those
Mm,
to smart, in a smart way and drive sales, then you're not only increasing your sales, you're increasing your client, customer acquisition and customer
right,
service, and basically just everyone, kind of benefits. So
right.
yeah.
And this is a trend we have also seen when we talk to our customers as well, right? So, while interacting with some of our initial customers, we got to know that it's not like they don't want to hire more people in their sales or they don't want to expand internationally. It's just that they are not able to, either because there's a skilled labor shortage in the market, meaning people are there, but they're not skilled enough to really understand the product, understand the technology. And or if people are there, then the salaries are way expensive. Adding two more members to the sales team. One of the customer told me that I can only justify their cost if they can bring me another 1 million euro in revenue. So, since the profit margin in the construction industry are really razor thin, so they have to really drive up volumes to justify these costs. And my pitch to them is extremely simple: is that, guys, with my tool, what if I free up 30%, 40% of your existing team's time? So instead of hiring more people right away, first use them to grow your top line. And once you have a better bottom line, that's when you reinvest into the company.
Awesome. Well, I think we alluded to a little bit about, before in this conversation, the topic, the main topic that I wanted to talk about is, in your industry or maybe, coherent industries around you, and what you're seeing is kind of what is that impact on AI having for you and maybe your competition or even like your clients that you're seeing?
Right. I think it's very evolving day by day. I mean, from a tech perspective, as I mentioned, we are always playing a catch-up game, trying to stay ahead of the curve. But from what I have noticed is AI has definitely impacted entry-level positions and made companies really lean and efficient who adopt it well. What do I mean by that? We were a 5-member, 6-member team, I think, a year and a half ago. And today we have almost 10 times more customers. But still, the team did not grow 10 times. The team only grew maybe 2 times. So up to only 9 or 10. So there's not a direct correlation between what's your team size and how many customers you can cater to. I think that's where we were a AI native company, right? Like from day one, we were using these tools, and our core product itself is a recommendation engine built on AI, right? So we kind of got that early mover advantage that we could be really lean and
Install
efficient
the
in terms of
blocks
capital and
and the
deliver much
electrician.
higher value to our customers within the limited budget, right?
Goals.
Right. So it really starts from, even from the outbounds that we do, whether it's email cold outbounds or LinkedIn to really fill up our top funnel. A lot of those messages are being customized using AI. My CEO and also the founders associate, they put quite some efforts into already pre-qualifying people who would be suited. So our outbound is hyper focused that, we really reach to the right audience, which helps to convert to first calls much easier, right? Because you're really hitting that relevancy sweet spot. In terms of tech and dev work, we use tools like Cursor and OpenAI a lot for code refactoring, for things like comment generation, for things like automated CI/CD. So, all of that also really helps us to, to A, build quality code in the first shot, and B, even if there are some flaws or bugs, we are able to capture them quite fast. So even before our customers raise that, hey, this thing is flawed or this thing is broken, we are able to capture it in-house as well. And C, I would say we have really built a team which focuses on learning rather than just blindly following established principles. In our team, I've set a culture of really challenging and speaking out loud. If someone thinks, hey, why are we doing this? This is just a waste of time. People just call each other out directly in the middle of the call. So like we've really kept it like open culture in terms of like, hierarchy or in terms of communication. So I think measures like these definitely help us to really be on top of to kind of stay ahead of the curve. And last but not the least, we also have kind of an internal hackathon every month or every quarter or so, right? Like where we dedicate like 1 or 2 days just not doing the Jira and sprints and all that, but really taking our time that, okay, guys, this new model came out. What can we do with this? Or if someone has some ideas, how can we build those quickly and kind of incorporate into our product? Not directly, we are more in OpenAI and Azure's ecosystem, but we do run a lot of experiments for things like extraction, things like ingestion, things like recommendation engine. So Gemini is really still in our, I would say, experimental palette, but production really is more focused on Azure and OpenAI.
Right now you guys are focused. It sounds like your outbound and your lead generation is super hyper focused on, kind of a really good thought out way of like getting in touch with those clients. So outside of that, or even with that in consideration with your business, with growing over the next like 6 to 12 months, knowing where you want to be at and where you are at now, what are some roadblocks for you guys that you are hitting right now to get to where you want to be? And how are you going to like get past those roadblocks?
Right. So a couple of roadblocks which I encounter right now is conversions, meaning converting a pilot customer into a paying customer, you know, especially in this environment is always very tricky, even more so when you are a young startup. And these are enterprise clients we are dealing with, right? So they are very hesitant to try out new things. It takes them a bit of convincing for them to, to try to get to use it, and then even more convincing to kind of get some money out of them because they don't want to get into any contracts before getting approvals from their management and head of departments and whatnot. And whenever there is a chain of command involved, we have seen that this really slows down our sales pipeline. So even though I may have like 3 or 4 demos lined up in a week, I know by the time I get a signature from their side and money into my bank account, it would be easily another 2 months down the line. So this long sales cycle is something I'm really still trying to figure it out. Like, how can I crack this? How can I make it much faster? And how can I reduce the hesitation for people to try it out? This is something which I'm really looking forward to. Another thing which we are trying to build is we have a successful outbound campaign, but what we really want to do is move towards a demand generation side that, people who are really looking for tools like these or who have awareness, they should get to Tenderfix's inbox, which currently is not happening. So to build that demand generation pipeline, this is also something which we are actively exploring and experimenting with, but we haven't cracked it yet. And I feel a combination of having a shorter sales cycle plus some automatic demand generation in place would be the key to unlock growth in the next 6 to 12 months.
Awesome. Well, if clients need to get in touch with you, or if someone's interested and they're watching this podcast and they want to see what Tenderfix is about, kind of what's the best way to get in touch with you? Maybe your social media, website, kind of how can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So you guys can reach me directly on LinkedIn. Just look for Mohit Kala Tenderfix. You'll find me. We also have our website up, tenderfix.ai. So check it out. We also have some demos lined up for you if you want to get to know more what this is all about. And as email is always kind of my personal favorite. It's much more personalized. It's much more easier to navigate your way into, because sometimes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure. And yeah, if anybody comments, I'll definitely send them your way. But thanks for your time today, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.